So these guys are flying over the next few days, and first station Wednesday or Thursday. You reported Thursday, right?
Thursday, not set in stone, but I hope not before Thursday.
Yeah. Okay. No, I was wondering. I guess not because that's the one thought they got left Friday evening. Probably not. Probably not. Summer concert thing there. Yeah. You think it's like good for all next week? Well, yeah. Yeah, what I think of except of course yeah.
you can't ignore it, but then you take a breath 2 minutes later.
Maybe he's channeling his desire to get it over with.
Yeah, I think it's also easy when you're in these meetings actually
I find it easier to go. Definitely it's louder.
I don't accept them about that. He's going outside the club.
afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this press conference. The DG will give a short opening statement, after which we'll be happy to take questions.
Thank you, Fredrik. Just very briefly, I think what's important is to listen to your questions. As you know, we had the opening session of the board where I gave an introduction to my two reports. So just simply to say good morning and open the floor. I'm in your hands. Thank you very much.
So any questions?
Francois Murphy from Reuters. Hi, DG.
Hello.
3 months ago, here you called a press conference that essentially diffused the tensions over a resolution at the last board meeting,
Yes.
and you said you were starting a new dialogue with Iran
Yes.
to address these open safeguards issues, and that you hoped significant progress could be reported to the board this time, and you also hoped that this issue could be put to rest once and for all. And when you were sort of asked skeptical questions about that, you told us that you are an eternal optimist. So are you perhaps a bit less of an optimist now about this issue in Iran?
Well, what I don't know about the optimist or not. I can say that, first of all, my expectations about this process, of course, were not met. It's very clear. I was expecting this focus process, as I called it at that time, to allow us to make clear progress towards clarification of all these issues, and this has not happened. There have been meetings. This I have to, of course, confirm. There have been meetings, and I should also, for objectivity's sake, I should say that the Iranian government has reiterated its will to engage and to cooperate and to provide answers, but they haven't done that so far. So I hope this may change, but as we speak, we haven't had any concrete progress on any of the issues.
I have a couple of questions, but maybe you can come back to me after. DG Grossi, you're aware in 2015, immediately after the JCPOA was agreed, there was a side agreement with Director General Amano, who went to the Hotel Coburg and signed a plan of action to resolve the PMD issue. Are you prepared to do a similar side agreement, or can you categorically today eliminate the possibility of signing some secondary agreement with Iran should the JCP be revived, because it's simply going to take too long to resolve these issues?
Well, there's a lot of speculation about that and linkages being made, as you say, including recalling things from the past, on how the IAEA, Iran, the JCPOA partners dealt with some of the issues in the past. On this thing, I want to be clear, one thing has nothing to do with the other, only in one respect. And this is not related to nuclear material. It has to do with trust. This is where everything you do with any country is interconnected. If you are going to put faith and trust on declarations, on statements, on intentions, and also from the other side on their probing ambitions, well, there has to be trust. And for me, the road to trust goes through information, clarification, inspections, and transparency, full transparency. I think that we need to make a clear distinction between so this is as far as the interconnection goes for me, but we have to make a clear distinction between a negotiation, which is very important, of course, taking place downtown, where countries are exploring if and when to go back to the JCPOA, and what we are doing. That has to do with Iran's obligations under the NPT and the CSA that they have signed with the agency. So I think, and we try to make this distinction very clear, one thing does not exonerate you from the other and vice versa.
But just a brief follow-up on the issue of trust, because you've had some very direct statements in the press recently. I think about the FT last week, HEU.
Yes.
Are you intentionally trying to put yourself into the middle of these negotiations, which are on a second track? Because that's the appearance from the outside.
Well, the IAEA is not only in the middle, it's at the center of the safeguards process, and is, according to the mandate which is given to us by the parties to a specific agreement, is the guarantor of the other one. So we are there. I mean, it's not because of my efforts or my intention to be at a center stage or whatever that we have to be at a certain place. What we need to be is extremely clear. I think the times require extreme clarity on what is really going on, lest we move forward without a strong foundation in the JCPOA area or in our traditional safeguards, mutual commitments with Iran.
This is Ahmad Samadi from Iran International TV.
Yes.
Some diplomats have claimed the Board of Governors will not react to your report and there will not be a resolution on Iran. I want to know your exact idea about this.
Well, my duty, more than my idea, is to report to the board and to say exactly, as I was telling Mr. Tyrone just now, what is going on. Not elaborate or speculate or might have been or will there be. What is going on now? And this is what we do. We put at the disposal of the governors the information, and then they draw their conclusions and push for resolutions or discussions or deal with this in the way that they see fit.
Thank you. Yes.
Hello, DG
Hello.
Homoletsky from Press TV. We got information from the Iranian mission that Mr. Salehi sent you a letter, and in that letter he said that he welcomes the IAEA's readiness to work with Iran actively on these safeguard-related issues, and we seriously expect this interaction to lead to practical results without delay. First of all, can you tell us about the significance of this letter? Is this going to change what you've been doing from this stage on? And if there have been 3 months of discussions, technical discussions underway, but nothing has been achieved, what has been happening then in these technical discussions?
Well, thank you. There are two questions in what you say. The significance of the letter is self-evident. This is the Vice President of the Islamic Republic of Iran. This is the President of the Atomic Energy Organization of Iran. So it couldn't be more authoritative and important. So I think I mentioned it in one of the previous, my answers to one of the previous questions. I think it is important to recognize that Iran is not telling us that they don't want to engage or that they don't want to talk. And it's very important that Dr. Salehi reiterates that. I welcome this. But at the same time, talk must lead to conclusions. And this is the point I'm trying to make. Engaging is the prerequisite, but the prerequisite for something. And this something needs to be clarified. What is really behind all the findings that we have put on the table. So my hope is that these expressions of goodwill will be substantiated and will be underpinned by concrete deliverables, so to speak.
Yes.
Hi DG.
Hi.
Turkish News Agency Anadolu. If I may, I want to ask your point of view about the ongoing talks, Vienna talks. I know you don't like the speculations. I know that. If they are agreed, a final agreement, what kind of deal waiting for us? I remember you speak in the European Parliament,
Yes.
and it was also you spoke about this issue, and you said last 2 years a lot of things happened. Therefore, we need some kind of housekeeping, and in this direction, you said something. Therefore, I just want to ask. It's the final agreement or this deal turned back before the decision of US, or it is something new? And if they are agreed, Iran turned back the additional protocol. Thank you.
Well, what you are referring to goes to the heart of what they are talking about there. So I think it would be interesting to see what the negotiators have to say, because what you're talking about is precisely this issue that they themselves have called the sequencing. What comes first? It's the United States lifting sanctions, is Iran stopping some of the activities. So all of this in itself is the subject of a very complex negotiation. So my impression, and I think on this you may be as informed as I am, my impression is that they are moving into a decisive phase of these talks, and we wish them well. The agency will be there to support them as it has been for all this time.
Aditi, just to follow up on what you were saying about how you know, expressions of good intent from Iran are nice, but you need to see results in these talks. When you announced this new dialogue with Iran, it averted a resolution against Iran being at least submitted to the board. This time around, there is no resolution being submitted to the board. Now, I know that officially, you know, you will say that it's up to member states to decide what action they want to take, and that you're not the one who deals with resolutions, but you do take a view on this, right? And if your endpoint is that Iran needs to deliver, then that would suggest that you feel pressure should be placed on Iran to deliver. So do you feel that the board is putting enough pressure on Iran to deliver the answers that you're calling for?
I think what is going on is serious. I said it, and in this there is no value judgment or criticism on the decisions of a member state, but it is serious because we have a country that has a very developed and ambitious nuclear program, which is enriching at very high levels, enriching uranium at very high levels, very close to weapon grade. So when I say these things, I'm simply describing a reality. So we need to be aware of this reality. And this is behind my concern. Of course, the board a year ago, it echoed my concern. This time, it's up to them. As you said, you were saying what I was going to say, which is natural because the board, it's master of its own procedures, naturally, but they have in front of them a DG who is concerned. Let them do whatever they feel it's appropriate. And also Iran, because I'm telling them in all frankness, I'm concerned. You are entitled to do this, but you have to give explanations and you have to be faithful to the process of safeguards. Otherwise, trust will not be reestablished. And I think this is a very important thing that needs to be borne in mind by all concerned.
Hi, good afternoon, DG. Setsuko Inaki from Nippon Television Network. Just to follow up on the discussion going on Iran, you have mentioned in various interviews that the IAEA and Iran deflecting what is going to be discussed in downtown would have to come up with a different procedure for the safeguarding of the agreement itself. And it goes to many of the concerns are the R&Ds, which the knowledge cannot be taken away unless you really take the people out.
Yes.
How are now that the things has advanced so much more, than some of the statement that you made that time. How concerned are you, and how far are you involved actually with the people downtown in nailing down the details of how IAEA is going to be involved in a different way this time, because
Yes.
the situation is different? Thank you.
Yes, well, there are different aspects in what you are mentioning, all very important. The first set of ideas, if I may say so, when you refer to my previous statements about R&D having advanced and activities themselves having advanced, have to do with my ideas early in the year, in the sense that we would need to have some actions before we could return to anything. And I think the process that you are witnessing proves that that was necessary. And the complexity and the laborious negotiations ongoing on both sides prove that we have a new reality when it comes to the program, which has advanced in all these areas that were initially forbidden by the JCPOA. So the parties to the agreement must come to an agreement on what is to be done there. Regarding the interaction, of course, as you know, we are not party to the negotiation, but of course we are being consulted regularly, because all the necessary, let's put it this way, all the necessary actions in terms of possible returns, which will mean reductions and limitations, will have to be verifiable. And this is extremely complex, in particular in the new circumstances. So we are giving our advice, our technical advice, on how to get to this level of verifiability under a new arrangement that they are working on. So we are following them and trying to support all the participants in this regard. But it's a highly technical process and conversation indeed.
Just to follow up on that, are you happy with the progress that you're making with this? Is the requirement in the discussion? Are you sort of feeling quite
Well, I can say
confident?
that we speak freely to them, and we tell them in all honesty what we believe is technically sustainable and what is not. So we give them our advice. And I can say that since we do it openly and to all of them, this is always well received, because we are there to really provide a guarantee that will be such. Otherwise, it will be without a real meaning or sense.
Hello, thank you very much,
Hello.
DG. So the last time, I think the language that you used around this process was that you were hoping it was going to break the impasse, and you're saying it hasn't delivered the results that were expected. Are there any other processes or any other mechanisms that you think the agency itself, from your side, could bring to bear? Or is it just up to the Board of Governors? Because I suppose if you're waiting for them to react and to take the next steps, then you don't really have an observer might say there's not really much left for you apart from expressing concern.
Well, I think you heard me say before that in these cases, diplomacy must always continue. We must never say there's no more possibility to move forward, because there always is room for agreement. In this particular case, I don't need the board to tell me that I can continue. This is my responsibility. It's my right, but also my obligation, because this has to do, I want to remind everybody, this has to do with the completeness and the correctness of what Iran has been informing the agency now and in the past. So this is my job. Of course, the board from time to time will react, and this is what you have been asking me about. Are they reacting? Is this enough? Is this not enough? Well, I won't get into that. I think the facts are there, and they have the value of its own weight.
And one more.
Okay.
Yes.
Hi, just to follow up on
Please.
the reality bit on location number 2, uranium metal disk. I mean, you've known and your predecessors have reported natural uranium under safeguards in the past in Iran. Why is a natural uranium disk such a clear and present danger that you're alerting the public to? That is more than 20 years old. Can you walk us through why this particular item is of such concern?
Of course. Well, first of all, there is something that, at the risk of being repetitive, I would say, if there is indication of an activity which could have been undeclared, you have to declare it, and you have to say what was going on there. So it's not a matter that it's good to do or nice to have, or perhaps, if you have time, you have to do it. And of course, uranium metal has different applications. You know it very well. It could be for different things with perfectly legitimate uses, but it could also be for other uses. So until we are very clear on what we are talking about, we are not going to stop asking the questions. This is why, so whether it's real, it's real. Present is present. Whether it's a danger or not, it's not something that we can say today. I hope not. There's nothing that indicates that there is a danger, but it's something that needs to be answered. There is no way around this. There is no way around this.
So, DG, the extension to the agreement, the understanding you have with Iran, expires in 2.5 weeks.
Yeah.
So we're unlikely to get a chance to speak to you before then. So, do you have any sense of how realistic it is to think that you might extend that agreement again? So, how doable is that?
Well, I think it's becoming increasingly difficult, as you have seen. You remember I had you waiting, and I apologize again for that, on a Sunday. And it was a very long conversation, and it took us a long time to come to an understanding, which is an understanding that, as you have seen, consists of some decisions being taken, not a joint statement or an agreement of a wider nature as it had been in February. So I can see this space, narrowing down. I don't want to predict. I don't know where we are going to be in a couple of weeks from now. It's a very short time. You may have noticed that as well. So when we get there, we will have to deal with that. I certainly hope that, be it ideally through the agreement, the wider general agreement that it's been worked on downtown, or by some other means, we are not going to see our activities, our inspection capacities curtailed anymore because of everything I've said in my reports and today with you. Because this matters, because what's going on is serious. We have to be aware of this, and we cannot limit and continue to curtail the ability of the inspectors to inspect and at the same time pretend that there is trust. So this is very clear for everybody and for me.
Sorry to jump on a different topic about the Fukushima treated water release. Japanese government hasn't still decided yet, but there has been quite a lot of requests from the neighboring countries in going, having the IAEA's involvement. And I suppose that the one is the experts' visit to Japan, perhaps, or some kind of observation by the third party. And at the neighboring, the constellation of the members who are going to take part in evaluating would have to be international, I suppose, but also partial, I suppose. Can you kind of
Well, yes, thank you for the
elaborate on your thoughts on
question.
that?
It's very important, and it shows the indispensable nature of the work the IAEA can perform when requested. Because here we have a matter that is of course, a very delicate one. Japan has a problem there that needs to be solved in one way or another. But of course, come to play a number of legal, environmental, scientific considerations that have to do not only with the neighboring countries that have expressed publicly serious concerns about this, but also the Japanese society, as you know better than myself. I was there in Fukushima discussing with the fishermen, discussing with the journalists. So I know that there is a lot of anxiety about this. And this was at the basis of my discussions with the Japanese government by saying that, again, trust. It's the issue of trust. If you want to do this in a way that will get the indispensable credibility, it's not enough to do it on your own. You can do it. You have all the technology, you have all the means. Japan is a country endowed with all the excellences in the world, but you need something else. And this else is the IAEA. So the operation that we are agreeing with Japan is one where the IAEA will be there before, during, and after the process of controlled discharges into the sea. And I have come up with the initiative to bolster this, to strengthen this IAEA task force, if you will, with a group of distinguished international experts, well known by their publications, public activity in the field of radio protection, real experts, top-notch experts from a number of countries, including from the countries that have been more vocal in expressing this concern. So in this way, we are ensuring two things. First, that the process is an IAEA process. Like in safeguards, we don't take sides. We are impartial, we look at a reality, and we describe what is in this glass of water. Nothing more, nothing less. And secondly, we make it even more, I would say, probing and excellent in its quality by involving a group of well-known experts, in the area of radio protection, like in any other area. People more or less know each other. They work in the United Nations Scientific Committee on the effects of ionizing radiation. They work in the International Committee of Radiological Protection. I mean, there are all these fora where the best experts, including from the United States, from China, from the Republic of Korea, from the Southeast Asia in general, from the Pacific Islands, from all these parts of the world, they have knowledge about these things. So I'm inviting them to be part of this process, thereby, hopefully, when this starts, giving the international community elements, again, to be able to determine that these discharges do not have negative effects on the environment. It's a complex process. We are starting work now for something that will take place actually maybe in 1 year and a half, 2 years until it starts. So there will be plenty of time to prepare the teams, to consult intensively with countries and with Japan itself.
Mr. DG, just to follow up on the question that I was asking about the technical discussions.
Yes.
Because you were saying when the discussions began that this is a process that you've decided to work on, a focused process. Are you suggesting that this process has not worked now, or is it moving in the right direction and is going to continue? What stage is it in now?
We must continue. There's no other choice. We must continue. As you know, you were citing a letter from the vice president. They were proposing some dates. We told them it's too late. I mean, we are in this kind of dialogue, trying to incentivate a faster process. So we will continue.
Thank you very much. No more questions?
Thank you very much. And we will be seeing each other bilaterally if you need. Have a nice afternoon. Thank you very much.